and welcome to the Good One Podcast. My name is Laura, and I am here almost every single day of 2025 as I journey through the Bible for my first time ever this year. So if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification button so you know when I upload the next video tomorrow. Today we are in Exodus. We are in Exodus chapter 1 because we finished Genesis yesterday, and what I really want to do, I saw these super cool stickers of like all the books in the Bible, and you can put it on like the front page of your Bible and stick it there and highlight or color in each book when you do it. So I think it would be really cool to buy those. So I'm going to buy one, and then if I buy it, I'll put the link in the next video so you guys can kind of see where I got it from if you want to do it and put it in your Bible and we can highlight it together. Okay, we're in Exodus. We're doing chapters 1, 2, and 3. Go ahead and pause. Make sure that you worship, that you pray. I really hope that you just get something from this that's more than just me talking, but that God speaks to you today when you're watching this video. I think it's important that we always have those moments with God in our quiet place, and maybe my voice is playing in your quiet place and quiet time with God, but at least you're hearing the word and taking the opportunity to draw near to him. So, all right, let's get started. After you've paused and then hit play, let's begin. Exodus. Israel increases greatly in Egypt. Yes, because we just left off with Israel dying. He's the man, but now Israel is the nation that comes from the man. So these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali; Gad and Asher. All the descendants of Jacob were 70 persons. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers and all of the generation. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. Okay, so this is after Joseph and all his brothers have died. They multiplied a bunch, and now they're a whole nation, which is like, now when I hear Israel, I'm always going to think of Jacob. So it's cool because I didn't know that name came from a person. I just thought that was like the place. So the more you know. All right, verse 8. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Well, technically, I feel like they wouldn't be escaping from the land because they would just be moving away because they're not anything other than like citizens right now. But he seems salty. Verse 11. Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. They built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. So they ruthlessly made the people of Israel work as slaves, and they made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and brick and in all kinds of work in the field. In all their work, they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. Okay, so this new Pharaoh was not a fan because this is after Joseph and all his brothers died. Now they just have these people that came from Israel, but he didn't have any relationship or connection with them. And he's seeing them continue to have babies. And he's like, dude, there are way too many of them and they could like overthrow us. So we need to be gone with them and turn them into slaves so that they can't rise up and do anything. Which is a wild thought process because I feel like, yes, he's different because he's a Hebrew and he's not Egyptian. However, Joseph was such a pivotal part in Egypt surviving the famine that at that point, like, why not just integrate and mesh versus like the people of Israel are probably just having babies with each other and now they're multiplying into their own nation where they're not really mixing with the Egyptians. Verse 15. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, one of whom was named Sifra and the other Puah, when you serve as midwife to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him. But if it is a daughter, she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but let the male children live. Yeah, that's also a really big difference between the Hebrews and the Egyptians, right? Is that the Egyptians have their gods and they see the Pharaoh as an actual god. So Pharaoh is like he's not like the Pope where he's like in an elevated position, but he is God on earth walking, is what they viewed the Pharaoh as. So for Hebrews, they didn't believe that. They believed in, God Almighty, the everlasting God. So very different. All right, verse 18. So the king of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this? And let the male children live," because they're not going to kill them, because why would they do that? The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to them." So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew very strong. This is an example of a lie in the Bible that was used for good, and that God appreciated it because it protected the Hebrew women and children, because they weren't going to kill them. So, verse 20. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, "Every son that is born to the Hebrews, you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live." I find this really interesting that they're specifically targeting the boys, because the boys are the ones that can continue to carry on that lineage and that name of Israel. The women can be integrated into Egyptian society. They lose their leaders when they lose the men and the boys. So they can be, used as midwives, used as servants, used as concubines, and their last name doesn't travel. They have no authority. So it's fine for the girls to live. But the boys, that's the root of the Hebrew society. And that's kind of how the enemy attacks us nowadays. All right, chapter 2. Now a man from the house of Levi went and took as his wife a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him 3 months. Okay, so they're related, is what that means, because they're both from the house of Levi. So they both come from Levi. They might be like, third cousins twice removed, but they're related. When she could hide him no longer, she took for him a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the riverbank. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, while her young women walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds, and sent her servant women, and she took it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, because she said, "I drew him out of the water." That's awesome. That's also something that's not included in the Prince of Egypt, because in the Prince of Egypt, it's Pharaoh's wife that finds Moses in the river, and she takes him and calls him hers, and wow, she loves him so much. But this is showing us that Moses was actually raised with his mother and his sister and his family, as her being his nurse, until he was ready to go live with the Pharaoh's daughter. So not the Pharaoh's wife, but the Pharaoh's daughter. So this would make him like the Pharaoh's adopted grandson. All right, verse 11. One day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, 2 Hebrews were struggling together. And he said to the man in the wrong, "Why do you strike your companion?" He answered, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "Surely the thing is known." When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So I wonder if Moses knew, in the movie, I'm just going to compare it to the movie because it's the only background that I have of Moses and his story. But in the movie, Moses had no idea that he was an Israelite or that he was a Hebrew. But in the Bible, it seems like because he was raised with them, he kind of knows, because it's saying that he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. So it makes me question, like, and it also says for one of his people, you look at the bottom, it says Hebrew brothers, like one of his brothers. So it makes it seem like he knew that the Hebrew, like, and him were one. And so he looked this way and that, he made sure nobody was watching, and then he killed the guy. And then he saw two Hebrews fighting, and he saw that one was in the wrong, and he's like, no, you guys break it up. And they're like, oh, you're going to kill us too? So I wonder, like, maybe there was animosity because he was living with the Egyptians and he was living with the Pharaoh's daughter. But did he know who he was before, because of how he was raised? And I feel like yes, based off what I just read. So anyways, he ran away. Verse 16. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and saved them and watered their flock. When they came home to their father Reuel, he said, how is it that you have come home so soon today? They said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds and even drew water for us and watered the flock. He said to his daughters, then where is he? Why have you left the man? Call him that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah. She gave birth to a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a sojourner in a foreign land. A sojourner. So much sojourning. That means traveling. I've been assuming this whole time, but I think it does. I think that's what it means. So, save the daughters, eat some bread, now you have a wife, and now you have a baby. Exodus is moving pretty fast. I feel like it's moving a lot faster than Genesis. We're only on the 2nd chapter, and so much has already happened. Which I'm confused because I thought the book of Exodus was solely about the story of Moses, so I thought that, like, this was going to be, like, Moses giggled as a baby when he ran past his mother, and then he was thrown in the basket at 3 months old. I don't know. That's what I thought. We are on verse 23 of chapter 2. During those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. I feel like this last section just reminds us the importance of prayer and crying out to the Lord, and not just saying, well, he sees everything and he knows what's happening, so if he wanted to do something, he would. God is a good father, and he always gives us the opportunity to cry out to him first and to ask for help before he steps in and tries to solve the problem. And that's what this is reminding me of. Okay, chapter 3, the burning bush. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, or is it Hethro? The priests of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, here I am. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their suffering, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptian oppressed them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? Shh, don't ask questions. Just when God says do something, just do it. Who am I? It doesn't matter. You're nobody. But God picked you, so you're going to do it. Verse 12, he said, But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. I love that God is always saying, I will be with you. Like, don't be afraid, I'll be with you. Verse 13. Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am, which also says, I am what I am, or I will be what I will be. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And I think this is where it translates into Yahweh, which is also like the breath, like breathing in and breathing out is basically the translation there. I'm pretty sure. But I also like hearing like I am who I am, because it's like God is all and he is everything. So he is who he is. Verse 15. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. So the Lord here has information at the bottom, and it says the word Lord, when spelled with capital letters, stands for the divine name Yahweh, which is here connected with the verb haya, to be. So like, I am Yahweh, like he is Yahweh. So the Lord, when you say Lord, that's what it's referencing. Oh, that's cool. I always feel weird saying Yahweh because I'm like, it feels like when you call your mom or your dad by their name, but you're supposed to call them like mom or dad. But also God is so personal that like, should we feel comfortable calling him that? I don't know. That's a good question that I have for you guys. Comment below if you think you have the answer. Okay, verse 16. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt. And I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice, and you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now please let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand. Oh no. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all of the wonders that I will do in it. After that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And when you go, you shall not go empty. But each woman shall ask of her neighbor and any woman who lives in her house for silver and gold jewelry and for clothing. You shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, so you shall plunder the Egyptians. So he's saying, you know, I'm going to tell you to go. You're going to tell Pharaoh that I sent you. He's going to tell you no. I'm going to have to use my mighty hand and strike Egypt. And then your women are going to go take all the jewelry and stuff, and you're going to be good to go. You're going to walk right out of there. Don't worry about the mighty stuff that I might have to do, because it'll be taken care of. This one I know. This one I know a little bit. I haven't actually read it. I don't know why I said actually like that. I haven't actually read it in the Bible, but I do know the story, and I do know the 10 plagues because, funnily enough, I just taught this story in school to the kids. Literally this week, we just went over the parting of the Red Sea. And I also watched The Prince of Egypt as a kid and as an adult. So this one I'm kind of a little bit more comfortable with. I know about the jumping frogs and the locusts and the dying animals and stuff. But it's always good to actually read it from the Word, because you can see how God handles and interacts with the Israelites and with Moses. And just how ballsy, honestly, Moses is to sit there and be like, but me, I'm not capable. Like, shh. Zip it. He said you. I feel like I really hope that, like, when I'm in those, this happens. When I'm in those situations with God where I hear his voice and he says to do something, I'm like, okay. I'm not going to question it, because you know what? Who am I? Like, your plans are so mighty. You're the creator of everything. Moses, he's speaking to you from a burning bush, like, and calling your name. You turned your face because you're afraid to look at the sight of the bush, let alone our Heavenly Father. And you're like, yeah, but like me, you're asking me, like, just be quiet. Yes, he asked you. Don't begin to assume that it's not going to work out. Obviously, God has, like, he knows it's going to work out. Okay, tomorrow we're still in Exodus. We've got 3 chapters tomorrow, just like today. So yeah, have a good night, evening, morning, day. Go ahead and drop a comment about something you learned, something you disagreed with, maybe something you agreed with. I don't know. All right. See you guys. Bye.